I'm Chad Ikes. This is Courage Barbell. On today's episode, I'm answering a question I got on my Instagram from one of my followers. I thought it was a pretty good question, and so I decided I would answer it today. The question is about Conjugate, which I did Conjugate most of my career, or most of when I got serious about powerlifting. I've done just about every program there is out there at some point or another. I think Conjugate's one of the best out there. I also like 531. Conjugate is the most malleable, pliable to the individual's needs. The question, though, how important is the weekly rotation of max effort movements? And can this weekly rotation play into becoming slightly random picks of movements? Yeah, this is an interesting question, and that's why I wanted to try to cover it on today's episode. There's as with most training, there are differences between the level of lifter that you are. Conjugate for an advanced lifter is going to be different than Conjugate for a beginning lifter. And this plays true in most training programs. So let's go over a newer lifter. When I have a newer lifter, we're going to run our max effort movements for most likely 3 weeks. Because a lot of these movements will be new to them. They won't be as familiar with them. They won't adapt as quickly. So say the first week, maybe a new movement, excuse me, and they're just getting used to it. So they're not really hitting a max. They're still learning the movement and working the muscles and getting the feel for it. The second week, they'll usually PR because now they're a little more comfortable and they can put a little more effort into the movement. Third week, they'll usually PR again because now they're really comfortable with it. They know the movement. They've had a couple weeks working the muscles of that movement. Then if we were to try to run it out to a fourth week, they would usually start declining because at this point they've adapted and they've basically gone 3 heavy weeks into this movement. So they're going to be a little bit not overtrained necessarily, but adaptation to the movement, adaptation to the central nervous system. So then we would switch them up to something. A lot of times after 3 weeks, I deload most people for a week anyway. Now, as the lifter gets more advanced and they have a barrage of max effort movements that they're really familiar with, you can really drop that first week because they don't need the week to get familiar with it. They're familiar with it enough that even if they haven't done it in 6 weeks, they're going to get under the bar, whichever specialty bar, whichever movement it is, and they're familiar with it. And as you get to an even more advanced lifter, you can switch it up every week and it's no problem. They're going to go heavy and hard. They know the movements. They're familiar with the movements. They know what they feel like. So it's not a problem. Most of my guys now, I don't have any really new guys at the moment. So I switch them up every week. Like every max effort is a different max effort. So now we go to part 2 of the question, if it becomes slightly random, a random pick. No, it actually should never be a random pick. The idea of the max effort movement is that you're always looking at the weak points and trying to strengthen those weak points. So, and this is why I don't like planning training programs way out. Because 4 weeks from now, I don't necessarily know what your weak point is going to be. So how can I pick your max effort movement right now? You know, the weak point we're working on right now may be fixed by then, and you need something different. I think Louis Louis Simmons also always said the same thing. Like, how can I plan out 4, 6, 8, 12 weeks? I don't know where you're going to be or what's going to be going on. I don't know where your weak point is going to be. So they're not random picks, but you need to, every time my guys come in, I'm thinking about the last couple training sessions. I'm thinking about the last time I had them max out with the main lift, and I'm looking at, hey, what is their weak point? Now, back when I trained in gear because that was the most popular thing back then. And Louis had always said most of your main movements should be a form of good morning. I believe even upwards of 80% of your max effort movements should be a good morning. And I think for geared lifters, I do stick to this. I got seriously strong doing tons of good mornings and good morning variations. I think with a raw, training more raw lifters now, I'm probably not at 80 or 90% good mornings. I'm probably down around 60 to 70% good mornings. And I get really good results with that. But to be honest with you, I don't have a set percentage of what I'm moving, what max effort movements I'm using. I just, it's always based on their weak points. The fact is that a lot of people have weak upper backs, and they need to work that. That's most people's weak points that I see. So we can keep hammering that out with the good mornings. Now, another thing that's not part of the question that I do want to kind of hit on right now is that max effort movements, at least for me and how I learned Conjugate and how I've developed my programs, I want max effort to be really heavy, like super heavy. I hate saying 100% max. I mean, it's 100%. It's a max for that day. Whatever that day is, I want you to hit that weight. I want 100+%. So what I like to do is I like good mornings, because a good morning, we're not on a max effort day. We're not trying to hit parallel or anything like that. We're trying to go just a little bit further of a hinge than we would be in, say, a squat or a deadlift. But it's a much shorter movement. It's a much shorter time under tension. So I can load up even more weight on the person and really stress that central nervous system, really work that core and the stability and being able to get their back tight and locked in. And we're really working on the technique of the squat and the deadlift when we're doing, lower body day, or if we're doing upper body day. I'm trying to load them up with a 4-board, just working on finding that position, locking that position in, and staying strong. So I know today a lot of people like to use bands and chains, and they like to use these full movements. And I don't necessarily agree with that. I think that's fine every now and then, but like max effort is stressful enough on the body. Why do you want to do these full movements and this long time under tension when you're going with a max effort movement, and now you're throwing on bands and chains on top of this? So you're kind of maxing out the bottom and the top under a long time under tension. You're like seriously stressing the central nervous system. And I see a lot of people that do that tend to overtrain really bad, but the meathead mentality won't let them actually realize that they're overtraining. So I like to keep it with, most of the time I like to keep it with movements that are shorter than the main movement, but I can load them up really heavy and just get them used to feeling heavy weight to the point that we'll do good mornings, and I may work up to the last good morning for them is not much more than a little bit of a quarter squat. I mean, they're trying to get out, they're trying to good morning, but it's so heavy they can't. And then I'll be like, all right, let's pick up 100, 200 pounds more than what your max squat is at the moment. And let's just pick it up and hold it and find that position, and not pick it up and shake. I mean, pick it up, hold it, squeeze that position, stay in tight, and be able to keep that brace and breathe and just get used to that weight. But we're not talking about a big movement. We're not talking about a really long time under that tension. We're just talking about picking it, setting it up, and finding that place where you can actually hold it pretty comfortably. That way, when they do get into squat and they do their setup correctly, they're not all stressed out. It's like, I can handle this weight. This is not a problem. They're not, oh my God, I gotta go, I'm shaking. they're just really calm, and we're working on the mental aspects of lifting too. All right, guys, I hope I answered the question. I hope you guys learned something from this. Please like the channel. Please subscribe to the channel. Please, please, please share the channel so I can keep this growing and all the other blah, blah, blah stuff I always say after this. All right, guys, I'm going to let you go. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. I hope I'm helping you guys out. If you want to put questions on here or questions on my Instagram, I'll try my hardest to actually get a video out answering them. Train smart. Focus on recovering. Let's all get stronger. Chat out.